Story time about the scariest night of my life. A lot of background information. So the one weekend, my sister and I decided that we were going to go to my stepdad's. And her best friend was going to come also. I was around 13 at the time. Well, my stepdad and my mom had been broken up for about a few months. But my dad was okay with us going to our stepdad's because he had been with our mom for around 7 years and he's always been good to us. And my stepdad's was 2 hours away. So fast forward, we get to his house and my sister and her friend wanted to go to a party. Now, me being older now, I knew that they didn't want to bring me because they were around 16 and I was only 13, but I still tried to tag along. Well, they weren't really talking to me or anything, and I hadn't seen my mom in almost a year. So I told my stepdad that I wanted to go and see her, which was a super big deal because she absolutely hated my stepdad. And she didn't want him around us. And by the way, she lived like 5 minutes from him. So if she found out that we went all the way up there to see him and not her, she would have flipped. So he drives me to my mom's house. So before I got to my mom's house, I called her. And I pretty much just told her that I was with my stepdad and I wanted to come see her. Like I said, she lived 5 minutes away. So as soon as we pull up, she walks outside. And she starts screaming at my stepdad. She's like, "Those are my kids. You're not allowed to see them, blah, blah, blah." Even though my dad had full custody and he could decide who we could and couldn't see. So after that, we walk in the house. She isn't saying anything. And this house is pretty much like a trap house. There was a knife holding the door shut. Not a kitchen knife, like an actual knife that you stab people with. She's like, "You can sit down, make yourself comfortable." And I didn't want to sit down because I saw needles everywhere and I just saw a rat crawl under the couch. So I was like, "No, I'm fine." And then she was like, "Sorry, not everybody can be rich like you." Which, just to make clear, I'm not rich. I just knew that she was doing drugs with her boyfriend in that house. After that, she pulls the knife that was holding the door shut out and points it right at me. So before she points the knife at me, she had been in the kitchen, right? So I went to go and sneak out the door. That's whenever she ran over, ripped the knife out of the door, and pointed it right at me. And she's like screaming a bunch of shit at me. And she's like, "Oh, what, are you gonna tell your dad that I pointed a knife at you?" And I told her, "Yeah, like, what the fuck do you mean? Am I not gonna tell him?" So at this point, she tries to take my phone. And I told her, "No, you're not taking my phone." And at this time, my sister's also texting me and yelling at me because she had told me that I should not go to my mom's house. Probably for that exact reason. A few minutes later, she hears her boyfriend pull up. I had never met her boyfriend. Like I said, I haven't seen her in probably almost a year. As soon as she hears him pull up, she looks at me and she says, "Go out the back door." She literally hurries up, takes me to the back door, and I have to run out the back door. I don't even know where I am. My sister and stepdad were waiting at the gas station across the street, so I ran over there really quickly. So pretty much I had to call my sister after my mom told her to go out the back door. And there was a Sheetz right across from where she was. But since she had to go out the back, she just saw like all woods and no gas station. So I got on the phone with her. She runs over to the gas station. And when we get back to my stepdad's house, we call our dad and let him know what happened. And the police actually got involved. And they had called my dad because my mom had called them and told him a bunch of stuff that just wasn't true. Like saying that my stepdad was a pedophile and stuff. Just like saying stuff that could actually ruin this man's life. And usually my stepdad would come pick us up and then drop us back off. But the police said that my dad had to come get us tomorrow morning, even though he had full custody and could decide who we could go with and stuff. So my dad came the next day and picked us up. Story time about why I made my boyfriend stop being friends with his girl best friend. So a little background information. I was in my sophomore year of high school, and my boyfriend and I had been dating for about 6 months. And he had been best friends with this girl, we're gonna call her Addie, for about 3 years. Now, I had known Addie way before that, probably since we were in kindergarten. But her and I weren't like BFFs, we were more of acquaintances. But obviously, we became friends because she was always around my boyfriend. A month after him and I started dating, I decided that we had to set boundaries for their friendship. Because they had first period together, right? Well, every morning at 9:45, I would go on Snapchat and I would see a picture of them. And it would be her kissing him on the cheek. Not only would it be on her story, but it would also be on his. And I had her on Snapchat before that. She had never done that, ever. So he said that he had talked to Addie about it, right? And things were good for the next 2 months. Then they were forced to work together on a project. So like I said, they had been forced to work together on a school project. At least that's what he told me. So I brushed it off because I was not about to seem like the jealous girlfriend. Well, the next day, him and I were supposed to go out to the movies. So I texted him right before we were about to leave, and I said, "Hey, are you on your way to get me?" He goes, OMG, no, I'm sorry, I forgot. I have to work with Addie on this project. She's about to come over my house. So at this point, I'm like really pissed off. So I text him and I say, I thought you guys had a whole week to work on this project. Why does it have to be tonight? Addie knew that him and I were supposed to go to the movies that night also. He said, we just want to get it done really quickly so that way I can spend the rest of the week with you. And she's snapping me the whole time that she's at his house off of his phone. So at around 1:30 a.m., I get a Snapchat from her on his account and she's laying on his chest. So like I said, she snaps me at 1:30 in the morning, a picture of her laying on his chest, and it's captioned, hey girlie, I hope you don't mind, but I have to spend the night at his house. He lost track of time working on our project, and it's way too late for him to take me home. So at this point, I'm furious, and I don't snap her back. So the next morning, I call my boyfriend, and I asked him, hey, is Addie still there? So he says yeah, and then I ask him to put me on speakerphone. So when he does, I say hi to Addie. She goes, OMG, hey girl, how are you? And that's when I pretty much go off on this bitch. I tell him that while he was asleep, she was sending me pictures of her laying on top of him off of his Snapchat, and that she was sending those type of pictures to multiple people on his Snapchat because my best friend had texted me that morning saying that she thought that we broke up because Addie was sending her pictures of her laying on top of him. So I tell him, pick me or her, and she starts crying. After a minute of silence, he hangs up the phone and then blocks me. Good luck to the next girl. Storytime about the 2-year-old boy who lost his life at the Pittsburgh Zoo. On a Sunday morning, a mother decided that she was going to take her son to the zoo. Everything was going good until they had gotten to the wild African dog exhibit. I'm going to insert a picture of what it looks like right here. On both sides of the exhibit, there was plexiglass. But looking straight out into the exhibit, there was no glass. They also had a roughly 4.5-foot railing there. Well, as most parents do whenever they take their children to the zoo, they pick them up so that way they can get a better look at the animals. Well, this mom had an idea of standing her child up onto the railing to get a better look at the dogs. Now, me personally, I have been to that zoo before. There are many signs saying not to lean over or set your child onto the railing. Well, in an instant, her child had lunged forward and she had accidentally let go of him. At 11:45, her child had dropped 10 feet down into the dog enclosure. A few seconds later, the people around her had went to get employees. But by that time, the dogs had already gotten to the 2-year-old boy. So like I said, she had dropped her child into the exhibit, and by that time, the dogs already got to him. As soon as this happened, visitors went and told the employees. Shortly after, zookeepers were able to call off several of the dogs, and they had immediately went back into the building. 3 more were eventually drawn from the child, but the last dog was very aggressive and the police had to shoot the animal. The father soon arrived at the scene, and after the mother and father were taken to the hospital for immediate trauma therapy. Since the exhibit opened in 2006, USDA had conducted over 35 inspections on that exhibit, and none of those times did they decide that it was unsafe. And this situation happened in 2012. Parents decided to sue the zoo in May of 2013. In court, the mother had argued that the zoo had failed miserably to prevent the attack. And this is what the zoo said. This was caused because of the mother's negligence and carelessness. I'm going to tell you guys my opinion real quick. I think it's the mother's fault. What do you guys think? Storytime about the girl who found out that I was hooking up with her boyfriend for 3 months straight. So a little background information. I was in high school, and there was this boy that I really liked. And I had a crush on him since I was in like 7th grade. And the only time he would talk to me is whenever he wanted me to send him nudes. Well, in high school, he got a girlfriend. But while he was dating her, he would still ask me for nudes. And of course, I would still send them. Well, the summer before my junior year, I got a job at this restaurant. Well, almost every single day, the guy that I liked would bring his girlfriend in. Because guess what? His dad owned the restaurant. We're gonna call this boy Alex. Well, the one night I was supposed to close with this girl, but she ended up having to leave because of a family thing. So Alex came in to help me close. And while we were there, we were talking. And this was like the longest that we ever talked. Well, he said, do you want to come over to my house after we're done? So a bitch said yes. And we did the nasty and he took me home in the morning. Well, then he started coming in often to help me close. Well, 3 months later, as I'm closing, his girlfriend and her friends walked. So like I said, the one night nobody could come in to help me close. And while I'm wiping off the counter, the girl and 3 of her friends walk in. I thought that she might have just forgot something because she was here earlier with her boyfriend, aka the guy that I was hooking up with. So I was super nice. I was like, hey, like, what do you need? And literally, as soon as I finish my sentence, one of her friends comes up behind me and grabs me by my ponytail. And then his girlfriend, we're gonna call her Allie, she comes up and punches me straight in the middle of the mouth. Like literally right in the middle of the mouth. I had to go to the dentist the next day because 2 of my teeth were missing. So then she goes and sits down at a table while she takes a video of 3 of her best friends beating the shit out of me. So then I'm sitting there, I could barely move. And then she plugs in one of those things that like guys shave their head with. And as soon as she figured out how to work the damn thing, it literally took her 10 minutes. My mom walks in because she had been waiting outside for 25 minutes at this point. So my mom called the cops and I pretty much won. My head wasn't shaved. I got a new set of teeth the next day and her boyfriend still hits me up. Story time about how I lost my V card. PSA, the only reason why I'm doing this story time is because after I commented on a video, it was highly requested. Okay, let's get into it. By the way, I do not condone any of the things in this story time. One more thing, if you are my family, please skip past this video, if you have not already. So one night, my friends, my boyfriend, and I decided that we were going to take LSD. And it was around 8 o'clock, and our one friend was trip-sitting us. And this was my first time doing LSD. And I always said that I was going to save myself for marriage, you know. Guess not. Well, there was a couch right next to this bed, right? And about 6 hours into our trip, my boyfriend and I laid on the bed. Everybody else was doing their own thing. And our one friend was laying on the couch. He was trying to go to sleep. So my boyfriend and I, a few hours later, we fell asleep on the bed, right? And we wake up in the morning and our friend, we think, is sleeping on the couch. And we were both in the mood. So because we thought he was sleeping, we did the nasty. Well, after I looked over to see if he was still sleeping, turns out he wasn't.